The queen is widely considered as the most powerful and influential piece in the game, and rightfully so. The queen has a special movement matrix, whereas they can move as a rook in any direction, laterally, up, down, left, and right. Also, uniquely, it has the same movement as a bishop, whereas the queen can move any direction diagonally, up, down, left, or right. The queen is considered the most powerful and most influential piece in the game. And according to the point system of positional evaluation, the queen is worth 8 points, whereas a rook is worth 5 and a bishop is worth 3. And that's not on accident. As a matter of fact, you can consider a queen a hybrid combination of a rook and a bishop. Why is that? Well, it's because the queen can have the same it has the same movement of a bishop. It can move in any direction on any diagonal, provided that there's nothing in the way, as a bishop, and it can move laterally as a rook in any direction, up, down, left, or right. So for all intents and purposes, you can consider the queen a hybrid between a bishop and a rook, as it has the movement of both of those pieces simultaneously. That makes it extremely powerful. Much like the bishop and the rook, the queen's advantage is its mobility, as it can move from one end of the board to the other in one move, provided that there's nothing obstructing its path. In that way, queens are going to thrive in open types of positions. Whereas if queens get stuck behind their own pieces, or they get stuck behind their opponent's pieces, or specifically pawn walls, the queen is going to have a very hard time becoming active, and it's not going to live up to the full capability of its powers. The second weakness of the queen actually comes from its own power level. For example, in a position like this, known as the Scandinavian defense, black plays the second move of queen takes d5 to recapture the pawn which was traded off in the middle. Well, black has put their queen in a very nice centralized spot, which is good. As a general rule, sometimes black can get into an issue because, being the most powerful piece, it is vulnerable to attack from less powerful pieces. Considering that chess is a game of trades, you would not want to trade your queen for anything less than your opponent's queen. So if the queen brings itself out too quick or creates a exposed or vulnerable position for itself, it runs the risk of being attacked by lesser valued pieces, such as the knight. So the knight can easily come out here, whereas then the queen is going to have to start moving around to avoid the attacks from the minor pieces. So say, for example, we keep moving some pieces, and then right here white is attacking this queen again, and we move the knight away, boom, attack. So now the queen's got to move again. Knight comes out, attacks the queen, queen needs to move again, so it moves to here, and let's just say if the queen gets too far out, the opponent can easily knock it around the board, which does two things. Let's move it back and take all the colors off. So we can see in a position like this, white, while chasing black's king around the board, has developed quite a few of their pieces, whereas black really only has this knight developed. White's very close to castling. They're just going to come up and then over and castle, whereas black still needs to do a lot of things before castling. They need to move this up, move the bishop out, and then castle. So they're really 3 moves away from even thinking about castling, whereas white is at most only 2 moves away. So what is the common principle for using the queen? The first thing is that we want to start by developing our minor pieces. Remember that our minor pieces are our bishops and knights. So for example, without moving black's pieces, we want to develop white's minor pieces castle, get the rest of our pieces out, and then we want to consider moving the queen. We don't want to move the queen too far out, at least in the beginning, because then we're going to get in a situation where we just saw where it can get batted around by your opponent's knights and bishops. You don't want to do that because you're going to lose time or tempo in this position, and we'll talk about tempo with some of the other principles of the game later on. So we want to be slightly conservative with the queen at the beginning, put it in an active square where once we get further into the position, we can establish safe places for it to go, and where your opponent's pieces aren't going to be able to go, to establish a safe but active outpost for this queen where it can advance and attack while still keeping itself safe from the opposing army, which would love nothing more than to capture it.